Oh, good morning. Well, hello. That's loud. Wow. Good morning. I'm going to try not to project too much. Pardon? Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Man. Good morning. I hope everyone had a great weekend as we start off this next week. It's an impossibility to stop the fellowship before the fellowship is ready to be stopped. And I don't want to stop it. So again, I hope everybody's had a great weekend as we start off this next week. I hope everybody's ready to go. Next chapter of Daniel. Thank you, Philip, for Daniel chapter 6 last week. How was it? Was it good? Yeah. Philip's a really good teacher. I bet he did a good job. I'm a little bit tired today. We had a long week, kind of a contentious week at work, but we got to top it off wonderfully yesterday afternoon, last night when Hunter and Samantha got married officially last night right here, and I got to be the officiant for that, and so that was one of the great honors of my life. It was a wonderful day. Then we went back and had barbecue and little cake balls for the wedding cake. Oh, my Lanta. That was so good. So good. All right, we're studying the book of Daniel. If you would, start turning to Daniel chapter 7. And as you're turning to Daniel chapter 7, if you read ahead, and I hope you did, you'll see that we're turning the page a little bit in Daniel. This is the last book in Daniel that is written in Aramaic. Next week when we get in, or not next week, but the week after. Yeah, don't forget next week is the outdoor church, and everybody's going to bring their one more. Just kind of as a tangent, did y'all know who, everybody knows J.R.R. Tolkien, right? The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, all of that, and quite a bit of it, yeah. So, but he was a very strong Christian, and when he went to World War I, that had a great effect on him, and that's kind of the effects of that war kind of led to some of the scenes that you see in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and things like that. But do you know who J.R.R. Tolkien's one more was? About Clive Staples Lewis, C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, when he went to World War I, he was an avowed atheist. And J.R.R. Tolkien took great interest in him and led him, along with some other folks, but led him to the realization of that there is a God and that he came to earth and died on a cross and rose again and he became a Christian. He was J.R.R. Tolkien's one more. So don't think that you may not bring somebody in there that is going to be a C.S. Lewis or something like that. Chapter 7. So chapter 7 is the last one that's written in Aramaic. When we get to chapter 8, it goes back, 8:1 goes back to Hebrew, which is an interesting fact. You also will notice that as we turn the page here, we go to less talk about, well, certainly it talks about earthly kingdoms, but there's more about the heavenly kingdom and things to come. More prophetically, y'all understand the eschatology, right? Everybody understands what eschatology is. It's the study of end times or end things. It could be my individual end of my life, right? It could be that when I die, when I transition, to the next life, that would be my eschatology. It could be the end of an age, like an end of a time. For example, when Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed in AD 70 by Rome, that brought an end to the Levitical worship, right? It brought an end to sacrificial worship. I mean, like right now, they have no idea who the sons of Aaron are, or they have no idea who belong to which tribe, the tribe of Levi or anything like that. So they can't do that anymore. So that would be, like if you studied that would be the eschatology of the study of the end of that age. And then, of course, It could be the study of the end of time itself, the second coming and the judgment and all of those things, right? And as we get into these prophecies, there are different interpretations of these, right? Of chapter 7 through 12. There are different interpretations of those. Some people would say that all of this is referring to AD 70 and the destruction of the temple and destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, perhaps, right? There are others that say, no, it is definitely the end of time. And you could be talking about Daniel in the same breath that you're talking about the book of Revelation, right? Because people have different thoughts on that. And it could be that the book of Daniel, and we're just talking about, 7 through 12, we could just be talking about, the triumph of Christ over Satan and all of those things. And I'm going to give you what I think is the interpretation. I am open to most arguments about this, most debates about this, most interpretations, but not all. And so I will, when I give what I think is being conveyed here, I will be open to some debate on that. I'm kidding. I'll be open to all the debate. But so as we go through this, let's remember those things. Also, the term Antichrist is going to come up, right? So that evokes a lot of emotion, right? When people start talking about Antichrist, right? When people go, the Antichrist. When people say, the Pope is the Antichrist. I don't know. I don't think so. I think when it's talking about Antichrist, like it talks about it in the book of Revelation, I think it is anyone or anything that is against Jesus. I think it's just that simple. And again, I would be open to debate on that, but not here today. I'm kidding. So as we get into chapter 7 and we get into verse 1, and it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. So obviously, we're rewinding the clock a little bit here. In chapter 5, to the end of chapter 5, we saw the destruction of the empire of Babylon and the introduction of the Medo-Persian Empire with Darius, kind of the governor in the stead of Cyrus the Great. And I think Philip talked a bit more about that last week, so we won't go too deeply into that. But let me turn the page real quick. So we go back to the first year of Belshazzar. Remember that Belshazzar was a regent, right? That Nabonidus was the actual emperor. Nabonidus spent at least 10 years in Arabia. Remember that what he was trying to do was to prove the old religion of Babylon, the old god, the Bel Marduk and all of that. So he spent quite a bit of time, at least 10 years in Arabia trying to research that. So Belshazzar is Nabonidus' regent. He's ruling in his stead. So the first year of Belteshazzar is about 550 BC-ish, right around in there. And so Daniel at this point will be about 67 years old when he has this vision. Okay, so as we begin this, let's just read it. Everybody ready? I'm standing right. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 verse 1. Where are you at? I am right here, I think. All right. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. This is a really cool vision. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, probably the Mediterranean, and four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear. It was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this, and this is kind of a shift, if you will. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Does anybody have another word right there instead of pompous? Okay, one at a time. I'm sorry. What? Great things. Boastfulness. Huh? Arrogant. That's the one I was kind of looking for. Arrogant, boastful, all of those things. Cool. All right. Verse 9. I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched then, because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I was watching, this is cool, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that that gives me the chills, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by. Now remember, this is in his vision, that near to one of those that stood by. Is that Gabriel, maybe? An angel? I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Those great beasts, which are 4 kings, which arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I wished to know the truth about the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, which came up before, which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth, which spoke pompous, arrogant words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High. And the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, and times, and half a time. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. This is the end of the account. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. That's pretty cool. And that is, so like Nebuchadnezzar's first vision that he got of the statue of the different metals, and those different metals and those different times that were represented by those metals, those are 4 kingdoms, right? So the first beast, the one that was like a lion with the wings that were plucked out, that would be Babylon. That was representing Babylon, right? And we saw, that, if we go back to chapter 5, right, or even go back to when Nebuchadnezzar lost his sanity and was like a beast in the field. So that pretty well represents Babylon, but we go back to chapter 5 and we see that, it's kind of weird to say it this way, but, in the future from chapter 7 back to chapter 5, that kingdom will be destroyed, and the next kingdom, the one that is a bear, right, it's represented by a bear, is the Medo-Persian Empire. And you notice that it says that it is raised up higher on one side. So if you can picture a bear with a big lump like on its shoulders raised up higher on that side. So if you think about Medo-Persian Empire, the Medes in that combined kingdom or empire, the Medes were stronger than the Persians. So raised up on one side, the Medes were stronger on that one side. And so the bear devoured the lion right there. And then we get the next one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. That's Greece, right? That's Greece that comes in and destroys the Medo-Persian Empire. Why do you say? How can you say so definitely? Well, what about 4 heads, 4 wings? When Alexander the Great died, he divided his kingdom up among 4 generals. And so they became 4 like districts or provinces or like that. So it's 4 heads, 4 wings, 4 divisions of the nation of Greece, of the empire of Greece. And then we get to the dreadful beast, terrible and exceedingly strong, that had huge iron teeth and was. This is Rome, right? Obviously, this is Rome that comes in, and when it says all of the earth, right? It says all of the earth. Well, all of what was known to them at that time came under the rule of Rome. I mean, it was from, and just as a tangent, never took over the Highlands of Scotland. Thank you very much. Do what? And sheep. He says there's nothing. That's where you come from. Anyway, so from Hadrian's Wall all the way back down through all of Gaul, which is France, right? And I mean, all of it. They took all of it and devoured nations and destroyed things. I mean, we talked about when we were doing 1 Corinthians and we set the stage for 1 Corinthians, Rome burned it to the ground and then rebuilt it later. I mean, they destroyed things, right? So that was Rome, okay? But when I said, let's look at verse 9. And the 10 horns, let's get ready to look at verse 9. The 10 horns represent all of these rulers of Rome, right? So it could be Rome and then also all the fragments of Rome. After Rome in the west fell, and there was a huge power vacuum and huge fragmentations of kingdoms and small kingdoms and city-states and things like that. And in the eastern, in Constantinople, right, was where, the Holy Roman Empire of that time, the Byzantine Empire and all that. So, I mean, had all of these fragments of empires and all of these things. And that's what that 4th beast represents. Now, let's switch for a second and look at verse 9. I watched till thrones, it's plural. Anybody's not plural right there? I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days. Who's that? Who's that? The Ancient of Days. And his hair of his head was like pure wool. His garment was white as snow. That's God. That's God the Father, right? Being escorted into his throne. And the throne is described as a fiery chariot. It has wheels and fire and flames and all of those things coming out of it. So that is God the Father. Notice that he's ministered to by thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000, what does it say exactly? Yeah, 10,000 times 10,000 people stood before him. I mean, that's a great throng of people standing before God the Father. And I don't know if I said people. I don't know if that's people or if that's angels or what that is. I don't know. But the court was seated, right? And the books were opened. The books were opened. What books? Say it. Yeah, the Lamb's Book of Life. That's it exactly, right? And the Lamb's Book of Life. The books were opened. So Jesus' Book of Life. And if your name is written in that book, you're good to go, right? If your name is in that book, you're good to go. As we talk about all of these things as we continue on here. Now let's look at verse 13 and following. And we'll come back to the pompous words and all of those things. But I want to talk about this. This is concurrent, right? As you read this, God is seated on his throne. And then this happens. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. Have you heard that somewhere before? The Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. Where have you read that before? Say it. Revelation is one. Ephesians, Philippians. You read it in a lot of places. That's the second coming, right? Or I think that would be like the second. It's reminiscence to me of the second coming. And behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him, Jesus, near before him, God. Then to him, Jesus, was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. That is the coronation of Jesus that you just read about right there. The coronation of Jesus. He comes before God the Father. God the Father sits him on his throne and gives him dominion and authority over everything, and the establishment of the kingdom of God is right there. So this makes me think that this is just after the resurrection and the ascension. That makes me think that. So he's in that place. He's there now, seated at the right hand of God. That's what it always says, right? Seated at the right hand of God. Did you ever notice that when Stephen was being stoned, what does it say about Jesus? Say it again. Not only saw Jesus, but every time when you read about Jesus being on his throne, it says he's seated at the right hand of God. But go back into the book of Acts and look at when the stoning, and it says that Jesus was standing. Jesus was standing up watching it happen. So it's interesting, right, to me. That's a total tangent. I apologize for that, but I find that interesting. That he's seated at the right hand of God, but when one of his people is being persecuted, he's standing up. So this is the establishment of the kingdom of God in which we are living right now, and this kingdom will last forever and ever and ever. Comments about that so far? Say it. I can't. Okay. All right, cool. So, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree. No, the kingdom itself is not slipping away. It will never end. Even in a place, even in what Hunter said was, it seems like we're slipping and getting farther and farther away, right? But this kingdom that we're living in, we might, in the United States, in England, because it's a post-Christian world in Europe right now. And I would even say we're pretty close to that ourselves if we're not already a post-Christian world. But you know what's going on in Iran right now? That's where the church is growing the fastest, is in like Iran and Iraq and places like that. No, the kingdom is never going to stop. It might shift a little bit, but it's never going to stop. And as long as we're here, as long as one or two of us, as long as we're here, the kingdom of God is never going to go away. So anybody, any other comments? So y'all look so serious this morning. Is it me? Did I make y'all get real serious? Sorry, if I did, I apologize. Hey, Mike. So the fourth beast with eyes and a mouth. Who's that? The one. So we said that was Rome, right? And there's the 10 horns, and those 10 horns represent the rulers, or the Caesars and all of that over the time of Rome. But then there's another horn, a third horn that comes up and devours. Another horn that comes up and devours 3 horns, and he has it doesn't say he has a face. He has eyes and a mouth. Yeah, exactly right. A false prophet. Could be that, right? It could be false teachers, people teaching wrong things. I'm sorry? Well, yeah. That's what Rome was. That's right. And it could be physical persecution of the church during the early days of the church. But certainly it says that he is spouting out pompous words and arrogant words and blasphemous words and all of those things, that he's fighting against the kingdom. Fighting against the kingdom. So, think of just one example like Nero, for example, right? And Nero was absolutely nuts. He was 13 years old or something like that, I think, Hunter. I can't remember, 13 or 14 years old when he ascended to the throne and started a fire, and he would use Christians. He was just a horrible person. So is that an antichrist? Is that the antichrist, or is that an? I don't think there's such a thing as the antichrist. I think that there are antichrists, people that are. Well, yeah. Yep.
It wasn't 100 years into it. Now all of a sudden Rome is the official, or Christianity is the official religion of Rome.
Yeah. Done by Constantine, right? Established by Constantine.
Christianity was being more and more accepted. Huge growing religion.
But at the beginning, Hunter said that that it was Rome that became that Christianity became the official religion of Rome. Really under Constantine, it went backwards a little bit after Constantine, and then it just flourished and went throughout the whole nation. But at the beginning, the persecution, Tertius and some of these others were just horrible of that. Turn with me to Revelation. I can't. Who's talking? Yeah, I agree. That's where we're going right now. That is Satan. That's Satan. That's where we're going right now. Thank you for that. Let's go to Revelation chapter 13. And we'll start in verse 1 and read a little bit here through 9 or so. Revelation chapter 13, starting in verse 1. One of these days I think we'll do a study on the book of Revelation in here. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Keith just gave me a look. He said, "Don't be an idiot." Everybody there? Then I stood on the sitting. Remember, this is John, the Apostle John. He's exiled on the Isle of Patmos, right? Remember that, everybody says that John was never executed, but it wasn't from a lack of trying. He was boiled in oil and just all kinds of things. They just couldn't get him killed. So they put him on the Isle of Patmos, and then this is where when he was in exile, and this is when he had this revelation from God. And in chapter 13, deep into this revelation, he says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion." Where have we read that? Didn't we just read that? The dragon, who's the dragon? There you go, Satan. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And that's pretty much what Hunter just said a minute ago, right? That this society is, that is just slipping farther and farther away and just acquiescing to the teachings of the beast and the dragon. And he was given a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. Anybody in here, besides Kelsey and Hunter, Harry Potter fan? Anybody? Harry Potter? Read Harry Potter? There you go. Thank you. So there's a scene in there where Harry is going to get his first wand. And what was the name of the guy? Huh? Ollivander, that's right. And he's talking about, there was one that had a wand just like yours. He did great things. He's talking about Voldemort, right? He says he did great things. Terrible, but great. That's the same thing here. And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Let me read that again. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. So you go back, there's several things in there, right? One of which I don't think really matters that much, but you go back, and when God the Father was seated on his throne, and he says that the books were opened, right? And then you go to Revelation, and it says, all of those whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain, right, will worship the dragon. And will worship the beast and the dragon. Exactly right. And all of those whose name is written in the Lamb's book of life, then we won't worship the devil and Satan. We're good to go. Whenever you read these things and people say, I don't like reading that because it's scary. Why? It's not scary at all. The battle is won. The battle is won, right? That we are there. And we just get to witness it. As that a friend of mine said, I'm going to get popcorn and sit in the front row. And Sarah?
This is cool for drowning. If you keep reading from there.
Mm-hmm. In Revelation? Yeah.
Verse 10. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God.
Thank you. Thank you. We were just getting ready. I'm going to read that. I was going to read that after we... It's very profound, right? It says, looking at verse 10, and it says, he who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So mine says just a little bit, it's written a little bit differently, New King James Version. I just like the poetic language of that. But yeah, it calls for patience and faith to endure until the end, right? And the kingdom will never end. So that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. The other one is this, right? This 42 months. 42 months. It's an interesting number, right? 42 months. You know how long that is? It's 3.5 years. Go back over to Daniel chapter 7 and look at verse 25. This is so small. Verse 25. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. So if a time is a year, times is 2 years, half a time, half a year, that's 3.5 years. Is that a coincidence? Is that important? Why? Why is that important, do you think? Yeah. You're the only one that was communicating with me there.
Because the base is going to make a deal for world peace.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the 7 years, he's going to break it.
Yep.
He's going to set up an abomination that causes desolation.
Wow. See that? Yeah. So that and the abomination of the desolation, and we're going to talk about that next week. He said, "Go ahead, say it." I should give you my microphone, but
The beast is going to cause Israel and the other countries to have a peace deal. Okay?
that's one interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's going to let them build the third temple.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's where things get a little controversial, but
He's going to make a peace deal and he's going to break it in the middle of the 7 years.
mm-hmm.
He's going to put an end to the sacrifices and offerings. He's going to set up an abomination that causes desolation.
And then when you see that, and then now you're talking about the Olivet Discourse, when you get into the Olivet Discourse in Matthew and Mark, that it kind of refers to that. It's an interesting thing. That is one that I will be happy to, pardon? Am I too loud? Oh, what he said was, one interpretation of that, and with the Olivet Discourse, is that, and Revelation, is that they're going to set up a deal, right? There's going to be 7 years, 3.5, 3.5, so 7 years. And there'll be peace, and one interpretation is that they will build the third temple. Remember, you had Solomon's temple, and you had a temple after they returned from Babylon, or whatever, yeah. And then, so there'll be the second, and then a third temple being built in Jerusalem. I'm not going to say what I think. And then he's going to break that deal, and it will set up an abomination of desolation in the temple, right? And that's kind of the idea. And then that would set off certain things that would happen as that goes on. I'm not a big believer in that interpretation, but that's okay. Anyway, but to me, the most important thing about this, and it was said perfectly, that this battle is won, right? So all of these interpretations, it's kind of like Jesus said, nobody knows the day, the time, or the hour when he's going to come back. Nobody knows. All that matters is to be ready, to be in the right relationship with God. And the right relationship with God is to be a follower of Jesus. But these are fun things to read, and people people go, that's kind of scary. Well, not really. It's not scary at all. It's because Jesus has already won. We're in a good place. Any other comments this morning? Thank you all.